Today, I am delighted to have a very special guest, Dr. Vohn Watts, who is the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Aegis Formulas. And I have to tell you, I think this is a very short resume from a previous conversations with Dr. Watts. He has done it all. He's a chiropractor. He has thyroid experience as a practitioner. You name it. He's been everywhere. So I think this is going to be a very fun conversation. I became acquainted with Aegis as a practitioner. I work on DNA analysis, blood chemistry. And one of the things that has been very obvious is that we need the support, the right support, and the right formulation to really support our DNA repair and just our chemistry so that we can be very healthy. Dr. Watts, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to have a great conversation today.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what got you into holistic healing. And I think you, from previous conversations, foundational health. I think if we could call you maybe the father of foundational health, the concept of it. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I went back to school actually as a second career to go back and be a chiropractor. After the mortgage fallout in 2008, I was in the mortgage industry and decided I want to do something totally different. And my mom was always into natural healing, into chiropractic, supplements, healthy eating, since the 80s. And I've always been around this, and so it's always kind of resonated with me. So I decided to go chiropractic school. Came out, and within a year of getting out of chiropractic school, decided I want to focus more on functional medicine. And so I moved more into the functional medicine realm. I really specialized in Hashimoto's, autoimmune thyroid dysfunction, which when you are dealing with that, you also work a lot with organ function and gut dysfunction, especially gut dysfunction when you're dealing with autoimmunity. And so I was in practice for a number of years. And one day in practice, I was a little frustrated with the patient that was not getting better the way I thought she should be getting better. And a lot of the autoimmune thyroid patients, a lot of similarities. They have a lot of similar symptoms, similar issues going on. And so when you see somebody who's not responding, it doesn't make sense to you as a doc. You're like, wait a minute, but I'm doing all the right things. And so this was our third blood panel. And by then I'm usually finishing up. Like that's usually the final panel to ensure everything is where it needs to be. And things hadn't moved yet. And so I remember that was the day when I discovered this concept of foundational health. And I remember closing the file and just thinking to myself, it can't be that difficult. Like I got to be overcomplicating, because the one thing I know about truth is simple. It's never complex. And so as I was going through it, I'm like, well, let's just go through what we know physiologically, right? I'm giving somebody some supplements to help them. But what is that doing? What does it do first, right? As it goes into the body, goes into the stomach, gets broken down, then absorbs the gut, so on. And that was my aha moment, because I realized about half of my patients had acid reflux, and which is a indication that you have low stomach acid, which also was an indication that you're not going to break things down properly or sufficiently. So when it does get into the gut, you couldn't absorb as well anyways. Now that's just one thing, but with autoimmune patients, they also have gut dysfunction, all sorts of issues. And so they're not absorbing anyways. And so that's when I discovered this idea of functional medicine is root cause medicine. We're really trying to get to the root cause. And what I termed as this foundational health, initially called it foundational medicine and foundational wellness. But just from a general, this is more of a concept that anybody can do. You don't have to be a doctor to abide by these principles. So this foundational health concept is basically, in my belief, is the human body is a self-healing organism when put in the right condition, meaning when our organs are functioning at an optimal level. Our body's designed to function well and to fight off disease and to fight off toxicity and all these other things. Unfortunately, we're so inundated, especially here in the US, with toxins and all sorts of other harmful things, as well as nutritional deficiencies. And so I realized and came up with a concept that before we go right into treating a patient, which a farmer doesn't just go straight into a field and start throwing seeds, right? They go and get the field ready first. And so that's where I kind of term that concept of foundational health as it's the preparatory work you do prior to moving into treatment. And so with the concept that if our organs are functioning at an optimal level, then we can deal with any kind of disease, or we can get past any kind of disease. What's causing organs to dysfunction? And in my belief, it's one of two things. It's nutritional deficiencies. And we know with our foods now, we're just getting all the vitamins and minerals that we need and that are necessary, not only for organ function, but for many other different physiological pathways. And then the other is toxic burden. So that could be parasites, that could be heavy metal toxicity, that could be molds, radiation, all sorts of different things. And also emotional toxins. When we think about stress, and that's a simple one. Whenever I say emotional toxins, people immediately go, oh, here we go. We got a doc. And I'm like, hang on. Think about what happens when you get too much stress. What organ does that affect? It causes your adrenals to not function the way they should. And so we know that, and that's a simple emotional, right? Toxin is stress. Now imagine trauma or PTSD or something else. Those kind of emotional toxins can really help or can really prevent healing as well. So that's how I put the concept together. And then I completely transformed my practice. I changed everything I was doing in there. And I would tell every patient, I'm not even going to treat you for 4 months. The first 4 months, we're going to work on fixing your diet and your lifestyle. And 2, we're going to ensure that we're not dealing with any nutritional deficiencies. And then 3, we're going to test to see if you've been exposed to anything toxic. And if you have, then we'll go through and detox out those toxins. And then after that, we'll rerun your panels and we'll see where you're at to give us a true baseline. And from there, then we can move into a treatment, move into functional, the root cause treatment. Now that we've got the terrain ready, what I found is about 60% of my patients never moved into the functional treatment phase. Just by doing that, their markers, lab markers normalized, their symptoms went away. And so it was a very big change, not only for me as a practitioner, because I started having better results, but also sold my practice a few years later and went to work for another big supplement company and brought the concept of foundational medicine to them. And turned out they sell a foundational protocol, which is they're still, I think to this day, their top selling protocol. And I trained a lot of doctors and practitioners on this concept of this precursor work and doing this before just moving straight into treatment. And so that's where we're at now. And then I know this is long here, but I left that company, went to work for another, did doTERRA for a year as a vice president of nutritional education. And then after a year, realized I just need to focus on my own brand. And so I've spent the last 6 months just really dedicated my time towards Aegis Formulas, which is a company I started. We actually launched July of last year. So I'm coming up on a year, which is pretty exciting.
That's awesome. And I really love your approach because we want to come out of a pharmaceutical approach. Maybe that's not working for us. Are we switching medication for supplements? How many of us potentially in the search for health have been on 20 different supplements at a time?
Right.
That's not really root cause, right? That's not really, it takes a lot of energy and dedication. And I get supplement bogged down and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to take all of this. And if I as a practitioner feel that way, I can only imagine how some of my clients sometimes may feel like this chasing symptoms. But so really like your concept of really fixing the terrain. And like you said, when you didn't even get to that second phase because you've repaired their functionality so that their bodies could heal and repair.
Which is one of the reasons why I went away from the name foundational medicine, because there's no medicine really involved in this concept. It's really just, these are just foundational health building blocks. And so gone back and forth. So really it's just it's foundational health. Foundational health, 2 things. Ensure that you're not deficient essential vitamins and minerals and nutrients. And 2, we should probably periodically detox at least annually, or at least go in annually and get some testing done to see if you've been exposed to anything. Because usually most people don't understand is by the time you start showing symptoms of something, you're about 40% through the process of whatever's going on. And if you can catch these things earlier just by going in and doing an annual checkup or getting an annual toxic burden lab test.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And with that too, it's important for people to understand I'm not a big fan of just taking random supplements, and I'm not a big fan of taking it just detoxing to detox. For me, I feel like there just should be a purpose for why you're doing things. And so unfortunately we're so inundated with, you can't scroll on Instagram without hitting up how many ads for some new supplement you should be taking. Everybody should be taking this. But should you, or are you deficient at that? Because you do realize that, unfortunately, you could be doing something you think is good, uh, and then you're taking something simple like calcium supplement, right? And maybe you're not deficient in calcium, but you're increasing your calcium levels, which means now that's going to change. And now you're dealing with vitamin D and phosphorus and other minerals where your body has to balance it. So you could actually be taking something you think is healthy because somebody says healthy, but if you're not deficient of it, it could potentially be causing issues down the road. And then the big thing with detox is, if you're going to detox, go get a lab run, see what toxins you need to detox. So then your detox can be specific to what you're actually dealing with, not just some detox that somebody's talking about online and selling. It's know what you're doing and be deliberate with it. And then when you go to detox, it's very important. You have to ensure you have no nutritional deficiencies because you want your organs functioning right. You got to make sure your drainage pathways are open so that when you go to detox, you can actually flush the toxins out. And then you also need to have the energy, the cellular energy to do it. So you want some good mitochondrial support so that you can get through detox. And if you do these things properly, you can detox without feeling crummy. A lot of people are like, oh, detox, I'm going to feel like I have the flu. And it's like, those that experience some of these, what's called a Herx reaction, they experience it because their body was ready for detox and they went right into detox. And that's usually a key indicator for me with patients to say, hey, pause the detox. Let's go back. Let's make sure your drainage pathways are open. Let's make sure this and this, and then we'll start back up. And so there is a preparatory thing to get ready for detox. If you want to have a successful detox and you want to have a detox that's not miserable.
I know, right? Yeah, because so many people are like, I don't want to do detoxes. I need to take time off work. Am I going to be in the bathroom all day? No, you do have to do it properly. I love your approach. Many of us need to just really take on that as a guide. So I love it. With Aegis, one of the things that caught my attention is that you guys do the nanoliposomal.
Yeah.
So could you explain that to us? Break it down super simple.
Yeah. So our whole goal, we have a 3-pronged approach at Aegis. One is myself and one of my partners, whose name's Dr. Jess Petros. She's a medical doctor, big online influencer with women's health. Her and I, both functional medicine doctors, we formulate all of our own products. So these are doctor formulated at clinical dosing. So at a dose that's going to be clinically relevant. So if a practitioner is using our products, they're going to see good results without having to amp up the dosage of some of these products you buy over the counter at a store. The other part is clean ingredients. So non-GMO, dairy, soy, any of that stuff manufactured in the US. And then third, and one of the most important parts, is absorption technology. So we know that with supplementation, just across the board, this isn't any specific company. This is just general. If you're taking a capsule, you are absorbing somewhere between 20 and 40% of that capsule. The rest of it, you do not absorb and it excretes out. That's a known scientific fact amongst most supplements. Now, the way you can help to increase the absorption rate is by adding things like liposomal technology, which is kind of like a little, for simplistic terms, like a little fat bubble that, say we have vitamin C, right? And this little fat bubble that encapsulates vitamin C and it protects it through the very harsh environment of the stomach. And also it makes it more, that fat makes it more, has a higher affinity for being able to be absorbed into the cell. And then with nano's a whole nother level. And so what it does is nanotechnology just basically, it takes, we'll just say vitamin C again. I'm going to just use an example. We want to do with vitamin C, but hypothetically say vitamin C, and they take and they put it through, I believe what's called a sonicator, which basically makes that, it kind of disrupts it a little bit until it can break it down to smaller pieces, down to, I think it's anywhere between 1 and 100 nanometers. So that makes it really small, which then anything that's small, the small things have a much easier time getting through the cell. And then when you take that nano and then you also encapsulate it with a liposome, so you make it nanoliposome, now you dramatically increase the absorption rate. And depending on the product, you can have as much as a 95% absorption rate. Whereas with a typical supplement, you're maybe 40% on the high end. And so I always say this, it doesn't matter how clean or how good of a product you have. If you're not absorbing it, I mean, that's a key element to, even if you have a great product, you still want to be able to absorb that product and be able to utilize those ingredients in you.
Yeah, sometimes they can be expensive. So we're spending money on things that we're not absorbing, then what's maybe potentially that's why we're not feeling better. It's
Yeah.
not just that we're addressing the unwanted conditions, but if our tools are faulty, then potentially, yeah, we're not going to get where we want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the NanoGlut+B. I think that's one of my favorite products so far. I take it myself. My husband takes it, and because I'm doing a lot of DNA testing, if anyone's come up with the MTHFR mutation, I'm like, this is such a great product because most of us also have all kinds of SNPs regarding glutathione, right, which is a great antioxidant. And so I just really love that formulation. What is one of the things that you think that people make as far as the biggest mistake? You talked a little bit about detoxing without properly being set up to do that, not focusing on nutrient absorption. We just talked about the delivery of supplements. Is there anything else that might come to mind that you're like, you stop doing this, probably you'll get better?
Yeah. Also, the big thing too is when you're going to buy a supplement, like I said, we're so inundated with information now on social media and with all the experts telling us what products we need to be taking. It's also very important to look at the back of the bottle, look at the ingredients, ensure that, because you could be thinking you're taking a good product, you're taking a supplement, and you're trying to be healthy. And then you go look at the ingredient deck and there's some ingredients in there that are not good. And so actually could be counterproductive. And depending on what you're dealing with, say a Hashimoto patient, some of those ingredients can actually trigger or basically make the autoimmunity even worse. So it's important to know what you're taking, read the ingredients, understand the ingredients, understand the absorption, that technology that you're using, how much of this am I absorbing, or am I just buying expensive? I used to say, am I buying expensive pee?
Yeah.
So those are the big ones. Really understand what you're taking, the ingredients, and how much you're going to be able to absorb of that. And then I guess the third one, what I touched on before, I'm a firm believer in you shouldn't be taking anything that you don't know why you're taking it. There's a purpose. Like you can say, hey, I'm taking vitamin D because I'm clearly vitamin D deficient. We ran a panel, it showed it deficient, right? Or I'm taking this or that. There's some exceptions when you're dealing with like anti-aging and stuff, but I'm talking more from just a regular health. Like we're talking actual health. Know why you're taking it. Don't just take it because a friend said, hey, you should take this. Everybody should take this. Or an influencer says that. If you're concerned that this might be something you should be taking, there's always a way to find out. And so my biggest point is don't take a bunch of stuff, know why you're taking it. And then even if you are taking a bunch of stuff and you know why you're taking all of it, you need to understand too, when you take a lot of supplements as well, that really taxes your liver because everything has to process through the liver. And so you can cause liver enzymes to elevate. You can cause some other issues if you're not also taking a really good liver support product, which is one of the big things that that glutathione helps with the liver's natural ability to detox, and it's a really critical antioxidant that we have. But big thing is just providing support for the liver so that liver can give it a little bit of what's called a little added jet fuel that kind of help it work better and more efficient, especially since it's going to have to work harder.
Yeah, you're right. I just had a consultation with a client and he was taking a methylated bean. And he's like, I'm taking B complex, B12. And I'm like, could you go get your bottle? I like to make sure that it's on the right one. Because sometimes I do that. Sometimes I see something,
Right.
I'm going to try this. I like to experiment as I find new things. And we're reading the label and it had synthetic vitamin C, and it had natural flavors. And I get paranoid about natural flavors. I don't know what's in it, right? So I just automatically say no to that. And he's, wow, no wonder maybe I haven't been getting the benefits of his methylated B12.
And natural flavors is a good one to bring up too, because I can't speak for everybody, but I'll just speak in general terms for us as a company, because we are aware of ingredients. Like we have, when we work with other manufacturers, we have one that says natural flavors on there. So if it ever says natural flavors on our bottle of ours, we then define what that means, because natural flavors, even according to the FDA, it has the essence of a natural flavor. So it doesn't necessarily mean natural. It can be completely synthetic. And so we always ensure, like ours, natural flavors, and it says derived from lemons. So I find it actually does come from a natural source. And we go out of our way to do that. And we talk to our manufacturers. Most of the people they work with don't do that, but most of them are just using regular natural flavors. And so when you see that, there's probably, and it says natural flavors, that's an easy out to not have to disclose what's actually in there.
Yeah.
And I bet 99% of the time it is synthetic. And if it wasn't synthetic, that means they went a harder route to make that supplement. And when you do that, like what we do, we make it a point to put that on the label. So if they're not putting on the label, just, you can't guarantee for everybody, but there's a pretty wide assumption that if it just says natural flavors and doesn't define what it is, that means it's probably synthetic.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. You want to be transparent.
Yeah. Like every ingredient that's in any one of our products, we have an entire ingredient index. So you can go click on the ingredient index under the science section, and you can learn about any ingredient. And so every ingredient of every one of our products is in this list that you can go read about and understand why it's in there, what it does, where it's from.
I love it.
So it's all about transparency, right?
Yeah, of course. You build that relationship, right? You trust. Sure. And I'm more likely to trust someone who's been transparent versus someone I have to chase around for answers and maybe not getting any response. What are some of the projects that you're like super excited about that might be coming up in regards to foundational health?
Yeah. So I finally finishing a book here, so it'll come out this summer, basically explaining the concept. And really the whole purpose of the book is to empower people to just take health into their own hands, which for me, that's the biggest thing. A lot of these concepts, if just implemented in your daily life, you get a huge health benefits. And the one biggest thing and the best thing to come out of COVID was the fact that regardless of what side of COVID you were in, what it did in general was it woke people up to understanding it's important to take control of our own health. Yeah. And it's important to start doing our own research instead of just listening to what's on the news or what's on social media. I should actually probably go and research myself. And you're seeing a lot more people now, especially moms, who tend to be the CEOs of the family and tend to be the ones that are really, there tends to be one of the spouses, and oftentimes it's the one that's staying home that is the one that's in charge of the family's health and really is invested in that. And so you're seeing a lot of these moms now being more empowered, wanting to make sure that what they're providing for their kids is the right choice and healthy. And so if I can be a little part of that to just say, hey, here's a concept of how to do that. And it's not expensive, and you don't need to come to me to get it. Like, I'm just showing you, here it is. And now you have it. If that can impact people and really helping people take control of their own health, then that's the mission. That's a home run for me.
That's awesome. Any other product that you wanted to highlight? Like, I'm in love with the NanoGlut+B, but is there one, do you have a favorite one of yours?
I have a new, oh my goodness, where's it at? Where'd I put it? I thought I had one here. You know what? I might have one in my wallet, actually. We have a new product out. It's a new technology. It's a strip. I thought I had one in front of me. So it comes in a little pouch. You open it up and it goes right on your tongue, like a Listerine strip, but it's a supplement. And so the one we first rolled out, it's called Calm, and it has two trademark ingredients, Zembrin and Zynamite, with it both been clinically shown to help decrease the effects of anxiety. And it's great for helping to just calm the system down. We paired that with another product and created a kit called our fight or flight kit, which really helps calm down the nervous system. And so for those people that kind of have that propensity to get a little amped up, it helps calm them down. But that strip is amazing because it's not a pill, it's not a capsule, it's not a liquid, it's not anything. It's just a simple strip. Keep it in your wallet. You can keep it in your purse, throw a couple in your kid's backpack. Very simple. Tastes good. I think it tastes like a honey tea or something like that. Somebody else has said it has like some other good taste, but I think it kind of just tastes like honey tea. But phenomenal product. And then we're rolling out an allergy strip in July. And then after that, we're going to be rolling out some really big stuff. We're keeping close to the vest until a little bit later this year, but some really big things coming out of the strip. So we're going to be rolling out this new strip technology, which is pretty amazing.
That's awesome. And going back to when you were saying about nervous system needing to be regulated when stress and anxiety are present, how hard it is to heal and repair. With this, we're supporting that because sometimes it's hard. We're detoxing from mold, having detox from mold and working with people who do that, who need to detox it. Sometimes the nervous system gets so dysregulated because of this microorganism, right? So if we can do anything to help calm down the nervous system, then we'll definitely be, utilizing it.
And my partner, Dr. Jess, she works with a lot of patients, a lot of women who they are in this fight or flight. Their nervous system is really amped up. And so this is part of the things we're trying to create as a solution also, not only for other practitioners, but for her with her patients, because one thing she's learned and she's educated on is it doesn't matter what's going on with the patient. If their nervous system is all over the place and you try to start treating, you're going to have a difficult time being successful as a practitioner. And so she spends time with a number of patients really trying to help. First things first is get their nervous system balanced out and calm down, and then moves into treatment. And that's another key indicator to look for. If you're somebody who's in that fight or flight and you've noticed that you've tried to do certain things and you're not having results, you have to address that fight or flight first. You have to calm the nervous system down first before you start going into any kind of treatment. There's an order of things too when you're going into your health. Like we said, you want to make sure, that foundational health concept first. You want to make sure your terrain's good before you move into treatment. You also want to make sure your nervous system is, that's even before that. And so there's certain things that you got to fix before you move into other things if you want to have the results that you're expecting to have.
Yeah. Awesome. And liver. You talked a little bit about liver. You mentioned a little bit about Hashimoto's and thyroid, and from previous conversations, I know that you're a thyroid expert as well. What's with the liver? How important is it? As a practitioner, obviously, I know it's very important, but sometimes this is news to people, how important the liver is pretty much for anything.
The liver, I can tell you this. I remember years ago, back when I was still in school, and my biochemistry professor was talking we were talking about, I think, outside, and we were getting ready for boards, to take our boards. And Venezuelan guy, so you got his accent. And I lived in Venezuela back in the 90s for about a year and a half. And so I love the Venezuelan people. I love the Latino culture. And so we connected because we have that little Venezuelan connection. And he looked at me and said, if there's a question on the board and you don't know the answer, but liver is one of the 4 answers, you select liver. He's always select liver. It's so important. It does so many things. It's our master detoxer, right? So our liver naturally detoxes things out. Unfortunately, it wasn't designed to detox for humans to be exposed to as much toxins as we are now these last 40 years, but it is meant to help detox. It's a big one for the thyroid. So 60% of your thyroid hormone, to convert it from inactive to the active form, 60% of that conversion happens in the liver. So that's one of the key things I look at right away. Whenever I look at a thyroid panel, I also run a liver panel with it because I want to look to see what's going on. Is there a correlation? Do we have a thyroid issue, or actually do we just have a liver issue and we're not converting hormone? And then there's a number of different patterns you can look at, but hormone regulation, liver is extremely important. It's a very resilient organ, believe it or not, which says a lot that you're starting to see a massive increase in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. which is brought on by massive consumption of ultra processed foods and really sugar. So now you're seeing kids with basically an alcoholic liver, which says a lot because a liver pretty much regenerates every 90 days. And you can actually take a liver out of one human and it's 3 lobes, and you can put that one liver into 3 different people and they'll grow into full livers. So it's a very resilient organ. So it says a lot. If you're dealing with some liver stuff, then you're probably been exposed to some pretty rough stuff, or your diet needs some real attention.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it though, with the liver too, is I see a lot of people, they get a little concerned because they've gotten out alcoholic fatty liver disease, or they have some definitely elevated liver enzymes, and they get really concerned. But the reality of it is that is something that can be easily reversed with diet and lifestyle and some really good liver support. And so you just got to get with the right guy, but it's becoming a real issue. So liver is very important, and we're starting to see more and more issues with the liver as our diet and sugar consumption continues to increase.
It is such a stressor. And then you have to think, am I missing other minerals? Am I missing other nutrients that is causing this? Is there parasites? Is there mold? You have TUDCA, right? One of your supplements.
Yes.
You have TUDCA, and it has milk thistle, you mentioned.
Yeah, TUDCA is one of my favorite products that we have. I love all our products, but that's one of my favorite. TUDCA is an amazing product. It's a bile product, so it really helps with bile flow. And we need bile to help emulsify and break down fat and stuff. And so it helps with digestion. It helps the liver and the gallbladder. And we also, and with that TUDCA, we added in, a lot of people have heard of Shilajit, which is a humic and fulvic acid. You know, that there's a lot of great health benefits to that. But we added in milk thistle and NAC as well, which are 2 really good ingredients for liver support. And so when you combine, and now when you take that TUDCA Max and our NanoGlut+B and you combine them together, that's our liver gallbladder support kit, and which is a phenomenal 2-product punch.
I love it. Yeah. And then you're supporting liver, you're supporting digestion, you're supporting your thyroid, and gosh, everything else, how important gut health is for thyroid as well. As you were mentioning, good production of acid and stuff like that. Wow. You're just full of knowledge, Dr. Watts.
Oh, thank you. It sounds like when you sit in a certain space for a long while and you're constantly looking to, I'd say I was different. I don't know how most practitioners do in their practice, but like when I have a patient come in and we'd sit down and we go through their file and we go through their blood panels and go through their history, I don't usually just give them a protocol and they walk out the door. We usually meet again a week or so later, and it gives me time to really dig in and go through it. And also oftentimes I find myself having to go in and research because there'll be something that's new, something I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And so it's that constant desire to research and to find the latest and greatest research that's out there, because the latest research doesn't always, and it seldom aligns with what the standard protocol is that's out there, whether it be in Western or alternative medicine. So just staying up to date and in the specialty you're in helps you help more people.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be your own practitioner. And I think all of us collectively together, we can really achieve that state of true wellness and health that we know that we can have if we remove the stressors that we run into.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What a great conversation. I wish I could just have you as my mentor and be like, what about this? What about that? So is there anything else that we covered some of the key data with your mission, the company that you're leading with Dr. Jess and your team? Anything else that you want to leave listeners with before we end up?
Yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, the concept that I'm trying to get out is foundational health and really helping people understand some basic concepts that can really transform their health, and not only transform their health, but prevent them from future issues because their body is operating the way it was designed.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it all comes down to one simple statement, which is health is simple. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be. And don't be afraid taking your own health in your own hands, researching, read, talk to practitioners, but you can take it in your own hand. And really a lot of it starts with diet and lifestyle. Diet, lifestyle, nutritional deficiencies, and toxins. And so if you can address some of those things, and most people can address those on their own without having to go to a doctor. Now, some of these toxins are a little more complicated. And so it's probably highly recommended to work with a practitioner, especially like the mold and some of these other ones. But at the end of the day, a lot of these things you can take care of yourself. Being healthy is simple. It's not complicated. I think there's a lot of people online talking, and it seems so complicated because there's a lot of smart people online talking. And so it gives this appearance that these people are so smart. I have to be smart. And it's like, you don't have to be smart to take your health in your own hands. So health is simple. Anybody can do it.
Yeah. We don't have to get a PhD before we can get healthy. Like we can just do, like you said, keep it simple. The power of simplicity per se.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How would anyone listening, how would they go about finding your company?
Yeah, you can go to aegisformulas.com, and it's a Greek word. It's Aegis, which is a shield. And so aegisformulas.com, or you can find me. I'm Doc Vohn on Instagram, or you can find Dr. Jess MD as well. She's got a pretty big following. Provides a lot of amazing information. So yeah, so you can find us or online, or you can reach out to us as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. We've learned so much. We'll make sure to add all the show notes at the bottom with your information so anyone can find you. And once again, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate being on here.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Until the next episode.